This story was sent to me by Caressa McKnight, and this shit right here is going to piss you off. Like, I already started reading through some of this article, and I'm already pissed. Now, y'all don't know who this woman is in the picture, but I'm going to tell you who she is. Her name is Jill Morrison, and she's a professor at Georgetown University, and she's a law professor. And she literally came out and she made this statement against Morehouse College, which we all know is the only HBCU in the establishment that caters to only mainly black men. And now, you know, Morehouse is in the news a couple of times this year for very good things, you know, mainly due to Robert F. Smith. But now this chick is coming out the side of her neck and accusing Morehouse College, like I said, an HBCU that houses mainly black males, of toxic masculinity. Now, if you look at it, you can definitely tell that this woman is melanated. Whether she has two black parents and she just happens to be light, or she has one white parent and one black parent, whatever. She wouldn't identify as white. And she probably identifies herself as black. Came out and made that statement. Now I'm gonna go ahead and read this article, and just as I'm reading it, you're gonna start fuming. Trust me. Morehouse College, the only all-male historically black college or university in the United States, promotes a Morehouse man ideology based on ideals such as equity, integrity, and agency. This model has produced civil rights leaders Martin Luther King Jr. and Howard Thurman, director Spike Lee, actor Samuel L. Jackson, and business leader turned politician Herman Cain, among many other notable alumni from the 152-year-old Atlanta institution. But to one professor, the Morehouse man is actually a quote-unquote toxic idea. So says Georgetown University law professor Jill Morrison in a speech on campus last week as part of the Georgetown Women and Gender Studies program's Gender and Justice Annual Faculty Research Colloquium. Professor Jill Morrison argued that the standards at Morehouse College create an exceptionally toxic environment for those who do not conform to the ideal for black masculinity. How many times have I told you that when that term toxic masculinity comes up, that it always, in my eyes, always seems to point towards black male masculinity and not masculinity as a whole. They're literally also telling you that black masculinity, quote unquote, is the supreme masculinity or the pinnacle of masculinity or the masculinity that you would want to be at. But they always have to throw that word toxic in there to make you scared of it. Her presentation focused on the Title IX discrimination of single-sex HBCUs and their transgender policies. During her speech, she's been criticizing Morehouse College as a hotbed of toxic masculinity. Morrison quoted an alumnus of the college who claimed the Morehouse man ideal represents the perfect storm of homophobia, racial and class anxieties of exceptional Negroes, masculine gender trouble, class conflict, and fundamentalist religious baggage, or as some might say, heritage or tradition. Morrison's comments came despite the fact that Morehouse has agreed to begin admitting transgendered men or biological women who identify as men next year. I remember I did a video about that a few months ago. Most troubling, she said, is that if a student transitions from a man to a woman or identifies as a woman, that student will no longer be eligible to matriculate at Morehouse and graduate. So you see what she's doing, what she said there? She's saying that if a guy goes there and he decides to transition from that of a man to a woman, they're not going to allow him to graduate, but they'll welcome a woman who has transitioned into quote unquote being a man. If she actually read the damn article, it basically stated that in order for that woman to go to that school as a transgender person, quote unquote, she would have already had to complete her so-called transformation. That's just like it is or it was with the army or the military. They're not going to let you go in there and start the transition because you're going to be spending the military's dime on something that would be considered personal. In contrast, Morrison reported that the historic all-female Spelman College Morehouse sister school decided to accept trans women and let attending women who transition to men to graduate. She's doing a tit-for-tat thing right now. However, she says Spelman must go further, citing a necessity for more gender-inclusive housing and bathrooms. She's one of those intersectionalist bitches. She's one of those. Meanwhile, the first ever quote-unquote male Spelman graduate in 2017 complained of a lack of understanding of the non-binary on campus and backlash from those who questioned his place at an all-women's college. I would question the same thing. In spring 2019, prior to Morehouse's decision to admit trans men, Morrison published a research project titled Redefining the Morehouse Man, Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity at Morehouse College in the wake of Spelman's decision to accept trans women. That's a long-ass title. It argued that although Title IX allows for single-sex colleges to discriminate on the basis of sex, this exemption should be read narrowly to require Morehouse to accept trans men. It also reviewed Morehouse's record of being hostile to those who identify as gay and or gender nonconforming and its legal obligations to these students. She must have gone to this school undercover as a man to get all of this information. One would think, right? Or does she have little spies going down there and they're coming back and they're telling her? Meanwhile, at the colloquium, Morrison had high praise for one institution. She noted the crown jewel of her research was Mount Holyoke College, a women's college in Massachusetts, which accepts every gender identity except those born male who identify as male. So look at what she just did. She downed an HBCU that houses mainly black males to uplift a all-women's college that to me sounds like a majority white college. Do y'all see the issue here? She just stomped down on a historically black college that houses black men, where great black men have come out of it, to uplift the palm-colored college filled with palm-colored women that I've never even heard of. Like, I never heard of that college before. So much for that myth of white womanhood, I guess. This is a person right here who's part of the sisterhood of failure right here. She just happens to have a degree. I bet she's one of them lead with degrees chicks. She says, the mission of women colleges is not diminished by the presence of anyone who supports that mission, regardless of their gender identity. And she sounds like a feminist. The only counterpoint Morrison briefly considered is that trans women or biological men who identify as women have received the benefits of having been male most of their lives, and trans men are the current beneficiaries of male privilege. It might change the women's college environment by asserting that privilege. Additional discussions at the colloquium held October 25th, including the discomforting truth about white feminism, Meryl Streep, Amy Poehler, and the movement's long history of racial insensitivity, in the crucible of sexual violence, militarized masculinities, and the abjection of life in post-crisis neoliberal South Korea. It sounds like it was one big carpet munching fest. It sounds like it was one big feminazi sphere. That's what it sounds like. But she literally just put, like I said, I will say it again, she put down a historically black college that houses mainly black men that can go on and do great things to uplift this random college in this hole in the wall place that houses mainly white women in Massachusetts of all places. And she's a law professor at Georgetown, which is a PWI. And she's not a white woman, but she sure is talking and sounding like one. Like, I cannot stand people like her. And she threw the toxic masculinity thing onto Morehouse College, even though they said that they were going to start next year allowing people who identify as that, who were transitioning, I guess, from woman to man, however you want to put it, into their college. She's upset because they're not allowing all of them to come in. She's another one pushing the agenda, and you can tell by what she said. And she said it in a tone that was very dark. And when I say dark, I mean it was very one of disgust. It's like you give them an inch and take them out. I wouldn't be surprised that she's a part of the Alphabet Academy the way she's talking. I wouldn't be surprised. But this also goes back to a narrative that I've said that many black women help to push this agenda. That's what she's doing right here. And she's going around it in a 360-degree rotation. She's not coming at it from just one way. She's coming at it from all angles, which is very rare because some only come at it from a one-sided way. She's going at it from every angle possible, but it's all pushed on one thing. And she's literally making an indictment on an entire college that is known to have black men attended, a very popular and well-known college. She even, in a way, insulted Spelman because she kind of uplifted them, but insulted them also in the same breath, saying that they could go further by doing this, this, and this. But then when she got to that white female college in Massachusetts, she lifted them up to the high heaven. She put them on a pedestal. Now, I can't wait to see what y'all got to say about this down in the comments. I cannot wait to see what the discussion is down in this comment section when it comes to this right here. Because this is absolutely ridiculous. I cannot stand that term toxic masculinity because I know who it's directed to. She just spilled the beans right here. And it's crazy because that term toxic masculinity was coined by a white gay man back in the 80s. And people have been running with it ever since. I said, y'all better start learning the origins of these terminologies of who came up with them and who and what they really mean, instead of just throwing them all the way around, because that's how stuff get lost in translation and how stuff becomes bastardized over the years. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this in the comments, and I will talk to you in the next one.